Today we're going to be talking about how you can stop using food as comfort. And I'm going to be recapping 7 steps from the book by Julie Simmon about how to not use food as comfort. And Julie Simmon has been working with ending emotional eating for about 20 years. She's an excellent resource, and I'm going to give you her 7 steps, my take on her 7 steps today. So if you do like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up or leave a comment below. I'll try to make each of these steps applicable so that you can apply them as you watch this video or the next time you feel like using food as comfort. So go ahead and comment if it resonates with you, and let's get into this. Before we get into this, there's 2 limiting beliefs we do need to talk about. This resonated with me personally. That's why I'm recommending this book. The first limiting belief was, we'll just go through these 2 limiting beliefs real quick before we get into the steps, because they're kind of important. They help set the context for these steps. The first one is understanding you might not have the emotional skills that you should have developed during childhood. And you might not have these skills even though you had good enough parents. I know for me, for years, I neglected and did not even know I was lacking emotional skills because I had this belief that my parents were good enough. And my parents were good enough. They were good enough. They did a good enough job. I turned out all right. But here's where we have to overcome this belief. You can have good enough parents who provide for you, but do not take care of you in the emotional way that you need. I hope this makes sense. A parent can take you to school. They can even be there and take care of you and give you food and not psychologically or emotionally abuse you. But unless that parent is psychologically and emotionally attuned to you, if that isn't the case, then you might be lacking in emotional skills. So don't just neglect the emotional side of comfort eating because you think you have good enough parents or that your emotional skills are good enough, because they might not be, and it's not your fault. This is what the case for me is. Don't be seeking the answer in nutrition if we're really talking about comfort food, because nutrition is not the core issue here. The core issue is emotional skills and psychological mindsets. The second one, real quick, before we dive into these 7 steps, is love. We oftentimes don't think, especially if we are coming from a background where our needs have not been met, we don't quite have familiarity with how we really feel internally, our sense of self. That was me. For years, I didn't even know that I didn't know how I was feeling. It took me going to counseling school and seeing a therapist and getting coaching and doing groups and going under years of meditation and healing to finally reconnect and overcome this at a full way. I mean, you can make rapid progress just by opening up to the idea that you might not be attuned to your needs. And this can be a little frightening for some people. It might threaten your identity. It might feel a little threatening for you to admit that, wow, I don't know how to manage my emotions. I don't even know what I'm feeling right now. And to accept that you might need a little bit of help, it's okay. It might be a little scary, but it also means oftentimes that we need to love ourselves better. So this might sound very strange that the core root problem of comfort eating is love, a lack of a love. But that's what this is about. It's about these 2 limiting beliefs. People think that they get enough love in their life, they love themselves enough, and that prevents people from taking these 7 steps, which I'm about to go through. So it's okay to need to know how to love yourself. This has been my journey of healing, and throughout these 7 steps, I'll kind of interweave stories about how lacking love caused me to get stuck in a tailspin of marijuana for years, and how only by realizing these needs that I stopped using marijuana as comfort. And marijuana and food are very similar. So let's go through these 7 steps. I'll name them right now. The first one is name and track your bodily emotions. Second, validate yourself. 3, reinforce your self-relationship with comfort. 4, get clear on needs. 5, catch and reframe negative thoughts. 6, highlight resources. And then 7, meet needs and set limits. Let's go through each of these pretty briefly, but I hope these give you an understanding of how you can stop using food as comfort, how you can stop emotionally eating and stress eating. And real quick before we get started, none of these are willpower. None of these are willpower. The whole willpower illusion is terrible. People think that they can just do it. Just do it. Just stop using food for comfort. Just use discipline. Stop being lazy. Stay motivated. Do it. That is a lie. And in weight loss enlightenment, we realize that our attempts at weight loss have often caused us to gain weight and become emotional eaters. And now we're enlightening ourselves by letting go of this myth of willpower and shifting our paradigm to one of healing. So with that being said, there's also another video down below which talks about this whole emotional eating issues. This will come into step 5 when we get down there, but let's go through it right now. Naming and tracking bodily emotions. For me, this all started back in the day when I started a Vipassana retreat. Vipassana is a 10-day silent meditation retreat. And before that retreat, that was when I was 18, about 10 years ago. Before that retreat, I had no idea how my body felt. And I did not know that I did not know how my body felt. It all clicked into place for me, and this is how you can make pretty rapid progress in the beginning, is when the teacher said, it's easier to release energy than stop thinking. So this really made sense to me because I was trapped in my head. I still to this day get trapped in my head. But before this insight, this enlightenment, I was trying to release my stress, solve my problems through thinking. And I did not realize that there is a mind-body link. And all these obsessive, anxious thoughts in my head were actually in my body as energy. And that by attuning to my body, I could feel the energy. And by doing various breathing and yoga and relaxing, and this will come into step 4 later on when we learn to take care of our bodies, but by learning to name and track and be aware of these energies in my body, I could then release them. It's a huge mindset step because comfort eating, why do you comfort eat? The biggest reason is that you are feeling uncomfortable and food makes you comfortable. Food is a temporary solution, right? Rather, the better thing to do for the long term, the practical thing is to, as they say, deal with the emotional energy at the core. But how do you do that? The first thing is becoming aware of the actual energy in your body, how that feels. Let's go. Step 2, these won't take as long, but the validate yourself is where you then feel these energies. So these steps build on each other. You feel the energy, and then your default reaction, I know for me, is to berate, to criticize, to compare myself to others and then shame myself. And the analogy I like to give is thinking about how you talk to yourself. If you wrote out your thoughts on a piece of paper and then read them aloud, what would you say? What would you be saying to yourself? That can be hard for you to understand what you'd be saying to yourself, but here's a different way to think about it. If you had a child or one of your best friends was going through a tough time and they needed food for comfort, how would you speak to that person? What kind of tone of voice? Would you yell at them? Or would you be soft and kind to them? You would be soft and kind, right? I'm sure you can tap into that. So you got to be kind and nice to yourself, especially with these energies in your body. Like if you have a tightness in your stomach, you got to say, hey, tightness, it's okay to be tight. Third step is where you take care of your body. You release the stress and tension. This is a step that takes practice. You do have to practice this to rewire your brain. It's one thing to feel energy in your body, and your instinct and your reaction is probably like mine, where I would tense my shoulders. I would get super tight in my shoulders. So walking around with all like a pound of stress every day. And so that's one of the reasons I became a yoga teacher, was because I needed to learn how to let go of my muscles. I needed to learn how to take care of myself. I needed to learn to relax, to give myself permission to relax. That's a huge limiting belief for so many people, that relaxation time and rest is not being productive. Okay? So we need to understand that it's okay to rest, and that this myth of being productive is actually just busy work most of the time. So by resting, you're actually going to be more productive. You'll be able to focus on the stuff that really needs to get done. The fourth one is getting clear on your needs. There's another video down below where I go over these 2 questions in more detail, but I'll go over these 2 questions right now so that you can get clear on your needs. A quick definition of needs is, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they start off with shelter, right? And then they go into food and warmth and clothing. And most of us, if you're watching this video, have those needs met. So there's another level of needs, which are belonging, respect, and those are the 2 big ones. This is why I said those 2 limiting beliefs in the beginning. Belonging and respect. Are your relationships treating you with respect? And this also includes your relationship with yourself. Are you treating yourself with respect? And lastly, around belonging, do you belong to a group? Do you have friends that you belong to who treat you with respect? In my experience with weed, I could try to stop smoking weed. I could try all these different strategies, from trying to smoke too much till I got tired of it, to smoking different types of it, to I knew it was bad for me. I wasn't denying it, but I couldn't stop. And the only thing that has really, the big thing that has helped me the most is finding more love, belonging, and respect in my life, especially towards myself, because I have a relationship with myself. And comfort food is really a lack of a relationship with yourself. So it's really, really important. I'm sorry for that fan going on in the background, but I'm going to speak up a little bit so that you can hear me over it. So it's really, really important that you realize that you do need love, and then tying this all back together is you feel an emotional need or energy in your body, and then you feel that in your body, and by tapping into the energy, you start to recognize what you need personally. Now, the other thing is then 5, 6, and 7 is where we start getting into the mental thing. The mental thing. Step 5 is where you catch and reframe your thoughts. This is where, so for example, we have thoughts that come and go. And the key thing for me is realizing that these thoughts are not mine. For example, the other day, I used to have a client. I used to be a personal trainer. And so I remember this time, just yesterday, a thought passed my mind. It just passed through my mind, and I started feeling bad. The thought was of an old client. She had been doing a sit-up, and she had hurt her neck. And then we stopped working together. There was a little falling out. It wasn't that bad. We still were civil and nice, and but we no longer worked together because she hurt her neck, and she blamed me, I feel, for hurting her neck. And I feel that hurt in my heart. And it just popped up the other day. I had this random thought, and I started feeling bad. So that was my instinct, to feel bad. I had to catch and release that thought by practicing step 5. Catching the thought is realizing I'm thinking this thought. The releasing is then being able to realize the truth behind the thought, because the truth behind the thought was that her form was right. It was not my fault that her neck got hurt. Her neck just got hurt. It wasn't about me personally. And so when that negative thought came up, I was able to say, here's this negative thought. Instead of letting me feel bad, I'm going to do my best to then let this thought go and realize that it's just a thought. It's just an interpretation. This thought is not mine. I am not causing this thought. I am not responsible for this thought. My only job is to practice not letting this thought affect me personally. And so I felt a little bit better after that. Now, I'm not saying that you should expect all your thoughts to instantly go away and for you to feel a lot better immediately, but you can release these thoughts. 6 and 7, 6 is where you then make a list of all your resources. An example of this is a guy who is I'm working with, and he is extremely hard on himself around binge eating. You know, he cannot understand why this is, well, he's starting to understand, but you know, it's almost like when he binge eats, he feels so bad. And that's part of the healing, is to talk about feeling bad, to realize how bad you feel. But another equally important part of this whole thing is realizing that there are other aspects of life which are probably going pretty well for you, and to take comfort and to solace in them. For example, this guy, he does community retreats. He's funny. He's engaged in his community. These are all strengths of his that when he is able to step back and perceive the whole big picture, it's true that yes, he does binge eat, but he's also a good guy. So when he goes into that depth of shame, he's able to see a glimmer of light, and that helps him get out of the shame quicker. And that's the key. Instead of going on some binge for a tear of a week where you're just eating or spending so much money on food, he's able to get himself out of that quicker. And then lastly is where you actually meet your needs. You gotta find love and belonging, end of the day. So go ahead and there's also, I'll provide, there's also another article down below about this issue. There's an affiliate link because I have read this book. I do recommend it down below as well. With that being said, have a beautiful day. Thank you so much. Peace.